So for this video, I'm going to show you at least one build for every single character in Mario Strikers Battle League. These are for the characters part of the base game. So anyone that was released after, let's say for example Daisy, they will be in a separate video, or I might just do this entire video again in the future, depending on what the situation is. Now for every single character, or actually for some characters in this video, I'm going to show you just one build. For other characters, I'm going to show you different variations, and depending on what you like and what your playstyle is, you can choose whatever variation fits the best for you. But for every single character, I will also give you my recommended build and how I will play these characters. I'm going to talk about how to play these characters. I'm going to talk about where on the pitch you should play these characters, and I'm going to show you, of course, their gear. So for the first character, we have Mario. 8 strength, 11 speed, 17 shooting, 5 passing, and 22 technique. I recommend playing this guy in the striker position because he is one of the best goal scorers in the game. In order to score goals in this game, you only need to have either high shooting or high technique. But the fact that Mario has both high shooting and technique increases his chances of actually scoring a goal, and it's much higher than the rest of the cast because he can put a lot of points into both shooting and technique, right? Him and Rosalina are the only two characters in the game that can do that, which is why him and Rosalina are two of the best strikers in the game. If you want to play midfield, you can, but I highly recommend striker position. In fact, this build is much more dedicated to the striker position because I think putting Mario in the midfield position is kind of wasted unless you're playing Mario and Rosa on the same team. But in order to get these stats, you want to give him a trick helmet, Bushido braces, cannon plate, and the cannon boots. If you want to get more strength, then I recommend this. This will lower your technique by 4, which is quite a lot. But your shooting does go up by 1 point. So even though your goal scoring capabilities are, decreased, it's not being decreased by that much because your shooting is going up just by a little bit. Yeah, your goal scoring capabilities are worse at the end of the day, but it's not that much worse compared to, what it is now, because your technique is still relatively high. Your speed goes up by 1, but speed changes within the same tier doesn't make a difference, so that speed increase is basically pointless. But your strength does go up by 3 points, which is good for certain matchups, but again, it's only 11 strength, so I wouldn't really it doesn't really make a big difference for a lot of matchups, so I wouldn't really care about that, which is why I would just go with the build I have, which is why I would recommend the build you see on screen right now. But if you're dead set on making Mario a midfielder, then I would recommend something like this: the cannon visor, the Bushido braces, the cannon plate, and the Bushido sandals. This gives you 7 strength, 15 speed, which is faster than the previous one because it now puts you in the next speed tier, 16 shooting, which is just 1 less than the previous build, 8 passing, which is slightly more than the previous build, but 17 technique, which is much more or less than the previous build, right? Compared to the first build I showed you, this one, its scoring capabilities are lower for sure, but at the end of the day, this Mario can still score a good number of goals because his shooting and his technique are both relatively high. So he's still going to be able to score, pretty well. It's just that the other Mario I showed you has a much higher scoring percentage. But this one is faster, which is also really good for the midfield position. So again, if you want to run midfield Mario, run this one. If you want to run striker Mario, run the first build I showed you. So for Luigi, we have 8 strength, 8 speed, 7 shooting, 15 passing, and 25 technique. Luigi is someone you just want to put in the midfield position, only midfield. He isn't really good in defense, and he isn't even good in striker position either. Now, in order to get this, you want to give him chain helmet, Bushido braces, trick pad, and trick boots. Now, I maximized his technique because Luigi can have the highest technique in the game, and this dude has some of the best long shots in the game, which is why speed for Luigi isn't really that big of a deal because you don't need to run around the map that often. In fact, even if you're near the halfway line, it's good enough for Luigi. Luigi is the type of character where you want to have good positioning skills. If you're in the right spot and you can charge up those long shots, it's really, really nice because of his high technique, and because of his high technique, those long shots have a really high percentage of going in. Now he is really weak, but it doesn't matter how much strength you give Luigi because the way you play Luigi is that you want to charge up those long shots. So when you're charging up for a shot, you're always susceptible to getting tackled. And a lot of the times, your opponent is going to charge the tackle in order to stop you. So it doesn't matter how much strength you have, because a charged tackle will stop you 100% of the time, regardless of your strength value, which is why having strength in Luigi isn't a priority. And again, speed isn't really a priority as well. Shooting, having low shooting doesn't matter because we have max technique. But having 15 passing does make Luigi very strong in the midfield position. It allows your passes to be faster. It makes it so that it doesn't get intercepted as easily. And it can allow for some very fast counterattacks as well. Not to mention that if you are going to get tackled when charging your shot with Luigi, you can just fake it, cancel it, and then, you know, do a pass, whatever, for a fast counterattack. However, if you want slightly more speed, so you are in the next speed tier, then I would recommend this. Give him the turbo boots. This does slightly lower your technique, but it puts you in the next speed tier. If you don't want to ruin your perfect 25-25 technique, then I would recommend something like this. Yeah, this one. Again, gives you just enough speed for the next speed tier, but it lowers your passing by quite a bit. So do keep that in mind. Alright, so for Bowser, you can honestly play Bowser in any position, because I think he works fine in every position in the game, because Bowser is just amazing, and you know, you can get some really strong, well-rounded stats with this guy. So I have 16 strength, 15 speed, which is actually a tier 3 speed on Bowser, which is quite a lot, 16 shooting, 10 passing, and 6 technique. Overall, this is a very, very strong, well-rounded Bowser that can be put into any position and will perform quite well. In order to get these stats, you want to give him the cannon visor, the turbo gloves, the muscle chest, and the Bushido sandals. For Peach, she is just the speed demon. Having max speed and high technique, allowing her to be the best dribbler in the game, because technique does improve your dribbling skills. And because she's the only character in the game that can have max speed while having a high technique, it makes her the best dribbler in the game. So she's super agile. She can just cut corners very easily. She can maneuver around enemies very easily. She's very, very good as a dribbler, and I highly recommend playing her in the midfield position. Striker position, she can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. There are much better contenders for the striker position. Defense, don't even think about it. She'll get bodied to the moon. 100% player in the midfield position. So we have 6 strength, 25 speed, 8 shooting, 8 passing, and 16 technique. Use the trick helmet, turbo gloves, turbo pad, and the Bushido sandals to get these stats. So Rosalina is very similar to Mario, where she can have high shooting and technique. So I highly recommend playing her in the striker position. She can play in the mid, but again, it's much better to play her in the striker position. Many people would even argue that she is the best character in the game. In fact, I also think she's the best character in the game, because she is insanely good. These are her stats, by the way: 11 strength, 8 speed, 20 shooting, 5 passing, and 19 technique. In order to get these stats, give her the trick helmet, the Bushido braces, the cannon plate, and the cannon boots. If you want more speed to get into the next speed tier, then I would recommend this: the turbo pad, giving you 2+ strength for helping you with certain matchups, the 10 speed, which now puts you in the next speed tier. You do lose shooting, but it's still at 18 shooting, which is still relatively high, so it's not that big of a deal. And your passing does go down by 3, but again, your passing was already at 5, so having 3 passing versus 5 doesn't really make a difference at all. So, you know, there you go. Next we have Toad. Now Toad is very similar to Peach because he can maximize his speed, but he does not dribble the ball as well as Peach, because Peach has a high technique set as well, making her much more easy to dribble across the field and maneuver around enemies, whereas Toad won't be able to do it as fluid as Peach. Not to mention that Toad's shooting and technique is relatively low, making him, well, he can't really score goals that effective, whereas Peach can score goals quite easily with her 16 technique. However, Toad does have a higher passing stat, which can make him a better playmaker than Peach. So I have 6 strength, 25 speed, 10 shooting, 16 passing, and 6 technique. The gear is turbo helmet, turbo gloves, chain plate, and Bushido sandals. Now, if you want to make Toad score some goals, then honestly just play Peach, because Peach can do what Toad does, but better, because Peach is the goal scoring version of Toad. But if you want to still score goals with Toad, then give him this cannon plate instead. It improves his shooting by 2 and his technique by 2, which makes his overall scoring capabilities higher. But again, these stats are still relatively low at the end of the day, that you're not going to see that big an improvement, and you're better off just scoring with other characters on the pitch. Not to mention his passing and his strength also goes down by 2, so do take that into consideration. Again, I would prefer to have something like this, where he's more of a playmaker. And if I wanted to have a speedy midfielder that can score goals, I would rather just play Peach instead. So Yoshi is in a weird spot because he's one of those characters in the game that can have a perfect passing stat. However, passing is probably the least important stat out of all of these, in my opinion, because of the way the game works. You know, a lot of the time players move around the pitch so frequently, and you know, you have certain players that are not in their proper positions. And a lot of the time, everyone's so clustered and so close together where having a high passing stat doesn't matter in a lot of situations, because if your pass goes to your teammate, then that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? So I feel like having a high passing stat for Yoshi makes it very hard to play around gear, because you know, those points could have been invested into something else. But hopefully I tried my best with the gear and got a pretty strong build for Yoshi. So I gave him 7 strength, 16 speed, which is actually relatively fast, 8 shooting, which makes him good for scoring goals, and then 18 passing, which is more than enough passing in this game, making your passes fast, but also increases the range of your free passes, allowing you to just, you know, be a very strong playmaker as well. Your technique is very low, but don't worry about it because at least he has 18 shooting. Okay, so we gave him the cannon visor, the turbo gloves, chain plate, and the Bushido sandals. So for DK, you want to play him in the midfield position. He can also play in the defender position as well. I did make a guide on DK, so if you want to learn more about how to play Donkey Kong, then go watch that video, because I think DK is one of the best CDMs in the game. Again, if you don't know what a CDM is, just watch that video. But my build, I gave him 24 strength, 6 speed, 10 shooting, 17 passing, and 6 technique. In order to get these stats, give him the muscle helmet, chain gauntlets, the Bushido armor, and the muscle boots. Now, if you want more speed because you want to get into the next speed tier, then give him the Bushido sandals instead. This will basically double your speed. However, speed after 10 is kind of negligible, so you won't really notice a speed difference past 10, even though you have speed 12. However, it is still a noticeable difference from my original speed, which is speed 6, so you will still notice quite a difference. However, you do lose 3 strength, which is, you know, not good for certain matchups against other big bodies. However, you're still relatively strong, so it's not even that big of a deal. In fact, you're still very strong, so it's not that big of an issue. And you do lose 1 point in every other stat, so do keep that in mind. For Wario, he's very interesting to build, because if you wanted someone who has good strength but also good shooting, just play Bowser. If you want someone that has good strength but good passing, play Donkey Kong. If you want someone that has good strength but also fast, or has good strength and technique, you just play Waluigi. So I feel like Wario is in a weird spot because he can do a lot of things, but I feel like there's a better player than Wario at a specific job, which is why I was like, fuck it, let me just make a full strength Wario build. And I tried it out in online battles, and it's actually worked out pretty well because of his max strength. It helped me body people much easier, and when I did get bodied, I didn't stay on the ground for too long. Plus, I was resistant to a lot of tackles from a lot of different matchups. So this max strength Wario is pretty interesting, to say the least. If you want to try it out, here it is, but I probably will show you different variation. This is the first variation, max strength with 6 speed, 12 shooting, which is actually decent. It's not amazing, but you do see some goals going here and there. 14 passing, which is actually good enough, and then 6 technique. So given the muscle helmet, the chain gauntlets, the Bushido armor, and the muscle boots. This build you could run in the defense position or in the midfield position. This variation, on the other hand, slightly makes him weaker but still strong overall. Puts him in the next speed tier and makes him a better shooter, but his passing is lower. So do keep that in mind. We gave him the muscle helmet, the cannon gloves, the Bushido armor, and the Bushido sandals. This build you can play in the midfield or in the defense position. Finally, we have Waluigi. Now, Waluigi you can play in any position on the field, defense, midfield, or striker. However, I highly recommend playing him in the defense position because he is the best defender in the game, because he is the only character in the game that can maximize or can have both high strength and high speed at the same time. He can also have relatively high technique, as you can see right here. Well, it's not really high, but it's decent technique. You could increase its technique with gear, even further, but the only issue is that you would have to sacrifice strength or speed, and I feel like that is not a good trade in my opinion, because you want to maximize, or you want to prioritize strength and speed if you're playing defense Waluigi. And if you are someone that cares a lot about meta and just winning games, then honestly just go with this build you see right here and play him in the defense position. You are going to stop so many goals and stop so many threats from going in. It's not even funny, right? So give him the turbo helmet, the muscle gauntlets, the muscle chest, and the turbo boots, again for 19 strength, 20 speed, 5 shooting, 7 passing, and 12 technique. And those are all the builds for all the characters of Mario Strikers Battle League. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content. Thanks for watching, and peace.